Why is it so important to get a home inspection? Home inspector Brad Lavertu joins us this week to give us the top 5 reasons why you should get a home inspection. Hope you enjoy.
You're listening to the Saskatchewan Real Estate Podcast, where we chat with real estate experts from across the province to learn what's happening in the real estate market. Here's your host, Ron Quaroni.
Hello and welcome to the Saskatchewan Real Estate Podcast. My name is Ron Quaroni, and it is my great pleasure to have Brad Lavertu on the program today, a home inspector finally on the podcast. Brad, really excited to dig into the top 5 reasons why you should be using a home inspector. First off, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me, Ron. I appreciate it. It's an honor that you called me, and yeah, I'm looking forward to this chat here. So
I'm really looking forward to digging into these, but before we get to the top 5, I really want to hear just a little bit of an intro on you, Brad. How did you get into the home inspection space? What were you doing before that? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I've been a certified home inspector for just over a year. Prior to that, I worked for a medium-sized commercial contractor in Saskatoon as a site superintendent. And prior to that, I owned a framing company. So I built houses. I've been in construction for almost 18 years now. So yeah, it's from building to renovating, now inspecting. So
you have a really broad experience with the inspection, or I guess with construction. Even though you're, I guess, relatively new to home inspecting, you've had a long time to kind of see the bones of a house from concrete to roof, really.
Yeah, you bet. And just being part of, new home builds, renovations, you get to see all the different components and the different systems, and just knowing how they go together has really helped me. So. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, let's get right into it, Brad. Number 1, the largest purchase of their life. For a lot of people, their home is the single most expensive thing that they're ever going to buy. So it makes sense that they would use a home inspector.
Yeah, I mean, you've looked at 5 or 6 or 7 houses and you finally make an offer on one. Well, you still got goo eyes for this house, right? So you're walking through this house and you might not notice things that I will if I go in there and I'm not attached to it the way you are. You've hired me to be completely unbiased and just tell you the way it is. And then at the end of it, I get to explain it to you and why, why this is a good house, why these things need to be fixed. And yeah.
In a sense, you're kind of like a house doctor, Brad. Like, from the outside, the patient might look okay, but, beneath that, there might be some things that you might be missing on that.
The things can look really nice, but if they're not installed correctly, it's never a good time. So many roof systems that we've inspected in the last month or so have been installed hastily, or, maybe they had their buddies over for a couple beers and pizzas and did a weekend roof job, but you miss those nailing lines on some of the new architectural shingles. They do not stay on the roof. So
no kidding. Hey, and that might kind of tie into our second point, is previous owners' renovations. When it's not done by a professional, or even if it's done by a professional, but maybe not done professionally, that can sometimes lead to a problem. So number 2 on our list, previous owners' renovations.
Yeah, and power to anyone who has the time and the capacity to do their own renovations. I know people. I am literally sitting in a room right now that just finished renovating, so I know the pride you can take in something. It's just making sure that 10, 15 years from now, if you're not the owner of the house, that person isn't going to have to worry about the roof that you didn't nail on right, or not tiling properly, not grouting properly, water leaks, stuff like that. Plumbing is a big thing. Upgrading your sinks and faucets is a fairly easy thing to do, but if you don't have the right tools or experience, you could cause a lot of damage.
So that's really like the test of time, right? Like something leaking a little bit over a
Mhm.
period of years can culminate into quite the fix or the build or quite the problem when you come in, Brad. So you were telling me about the tiling there. In that situation, if someone doesn't grout correctly, there's can be some pretty significant damage to a home, right?
Yeah, I mean, like water seeps through, right? Like grout's meant to get wet, but if it's not mixed properly, installed properly, you can end up with damage to the subfloor underneath. And we've had a lot of times what I find is after flooring is done in a bathroom, homeowners will put their toilets back on and not quite sit the toilet properly. So we have three things we do to check toilets, and number one is lean up against it with your leg, like literally push it. And if it moves, that's not good.
Hmm.
So, and then we always check for leaks on the back and in between the tank and the bowl itself, or the tank and the bottom there, and just make sure that the flusher valve is actually stops running, because a running toilet can add up to a couple $100 in a year in water. So
No kidding. While we're on this topic, Brad, what other common areas in the home as a home inspector you go through in the home? What are some of those common areas?
so we have there's 10 kind of components that we look at, or systems, such as your roof, foundation basements, stuff like that, windows, doors, all your interior stuff, like your kitchen cabinets. And then we have plumbing, electrical, fireplaces, and then any additional things. So it's really systematic when I go into a house. It's not like I just walk into a room here, room there. For me, it's, start at the front door and walk around the house to the right. If you can't get through the gate there, then you walk around the other way. But I always make 2 trips around the house on the outside, and then you go through every room one way and then back the other way, because you miss stuff. And someone's paid me to find the things, and so I always do a double check. But yeah, it's very systematic. And the software that's out now for home inspectors specifically is great, because it gives us these lists and reminds you, make sure you check the gas meter or whatever. Like, yeah, that's great.
Fantastic. So we're going through the top 5 reasons why you should use a home inspector when in the home buying process. And some people might be buying a brand new home, Brad. So they might think there's absolutely no reason why I should need to use a home inspector. What would you say to those folks?
It's tough, because I just came from a job where I was building new houses, and I know, again, the pride that you have in turning a house over to someone, brand new house. But at the same time, being there the whole time can be daunting. And then at the end of the job, you hand over the keys and you're done. But one of the things that I'm really pushing people to do is get a home inspector to do their 11th month walkthrough. So your new home warranty lasts a year. At 11 months, we come in and we do a full home inspection, and we go through everything like we would in like someone's buying a different house. But it just, again, is an unbiased person looking at your house, because the builder is biased because he built it, and the bottom line is, it's their money that they're going to be out if they have to fix something. So they might steer you around a little bit, and I'm not saying that people do that intentionally, but yeah, today I was at one 11th month walkthrough, and there was a gas line leak in the mechanical room, but it was small enough that the fresh air intake into the room dissipated the gas and you couldn't really smell it. But we have tests and equipment that we use to find those things. And I mean, that's a pretty big deal to have a a gas leak that sets off our gas detectors is enough to want to get someone in to fix it. So
Yeah, that perfectly illustrates why having someone who's going to act as that secondary set of eyes on the place is a really good benefit. So yeah, that's really great that you found the gas leak in that place. Number 4. So a lot of people would come through, and we all know handy people in our lives. And so we might also be tempted, well, rather than get a full home inspection, I'm going to bring my dad, who, dad's fixed some doors at the house. He's pretty handy. Dad will be able to help me with this home inspection. What can we say about getting expert eyes on the home?
Again, it's your dad's going to look at the house differently than I would. And I had actually, he was an inspector up north of PA for 35 years, and he walked through the house with me that his son was buying, and that was that was very nerve-wracking, more so than this interview. But yeah, just having this guy, nitpick everything I did, but at the end he had no complaints, and dad was happy, so that made me happy. But in most cases, your dad hasn't, been an inspector for 35 years. So it's, like I said, having the right tools and the training that we do have, I mean, is we delve into all of the components, and, some guys have a little bit of knowledge in one or two areas, and that's great. But it's really, it's the whole house that you need to look at, and nitpicking on sticking doors or loose handles is one thing, but the heart of your house is in your mechanical room, and that's where that's where the most expensive stuff in your house usually is. It wears out, and I'm there to tell you, this might last you maybe 2 years, or you don't have to worry about this water heater like it was just installed and whatever. So
on that note, I've heard from you before talking about the specialized equipment that you have as well, things that the average person that doesn't really have access to. Can you tell us some of those like really cool tools that you use when going through a home inspection?
yeah, so one of my favorite things is the infrared gun. It is, you kind of feel a bit like, a superhero. You can see into walls, but it's really not that cool. But yeah, just having the ability to point out areas of concern, lack of insulation. One of the first inspections I did in January, like this year here, there was like an 8-foot spot on the ceiling that was blue. Like the rest of the ceiling was warm, and then there's just this, it looked like there was a swimming pool up there. And crawl up in the attic, half an hour later, and there was no insulation in the one corner of the house. And I would have found it, crawling up in the attic, but it's better to know that there's an issue up there before I get up there, because then I can look into it more. But yeah, infrared gun, combustible gas detectors, inspection cameras for furnaces, and stuff like that. But yeah, there's lots of little hand tools, picks for making sure your wood isn't completely rotted, stuff like that. It's really not all that exciting. It all fits in a backpack in one little case, but
we all want to play with the infrared gun though, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
All right, Brad, we're on to number 5 now. So you can identify spots in the house where the owner should know about. And this is really important for a lot of new home buyers. If you're going into a home and you've never owned a home before, it's really important to know where different things are. Quickly take us through the importance of kind of knowing the house that you're buying.
Yeah, so we have every house is required to have a water shutoff that's accessible, and that's a big thing, is accessible, because if something happens upstairs and the shutoff valve doesn't work under the sink, but something's burst in your house. My neighbor actually had a pipe burst the other day and was able to shut his water off within 20 seconds because he was told at one point where it was, and it saved them a huge mess. But water shut off is always one of the first things we try to show you where that is, so that you are aware. Your gas shut off, and a lot of times you'll never need to shut the gas off to your house, but we need to show people where it is, because if there is a fire and where's your gas meter, you can say it's on that side of the house, and they'll go shut your gas off so it doesn't explode. Furnace switches, there's always a switch, usually in a stairway or in the entrance to the mechanical room, to shut your furnace off. That can be done in case of emergency, but also if you're changing your furnace filter. If you leave your furnace running when you're trying to change your furnace filter, it gets sucked into there. So shut it off.
Really fascinating stuff, Brad. I've really enjoyed the information that you're providing here. And I think it's very valuable for people who haven't gone through the home buying process yet to kind of hear a little bit about this, and then maybe have the confidence that, it's not really a decision, that you just should get a home inspection when you're going through the home buying process.
Yeah. And, if you've been in your house for 10 or 15 years and you haven't really had somebody look through it that well, I mean, having a second set of eyes on something that, you've become comfortable with is always a good idea as well. And it's, being unbiased, walking into someone's house, regardless of size, shape, how messy it is, because I've seen some messy houses, Ron, but yeah, it's always a good idea to just, make sure that you're looking after things. Like you said at the start, number one was it's the biggest purchase of someone's life, and you want to make sure that that purchase value is constantly growing and not costing you more money than it needs to.
Wonderful. Brad, thank you so much for sitting down with us. Before I let you go, one last question for you. If you could go back and give a young Brad some advice, what would that advice be?
I knew this question was coming, and I don't know. I think having the experience I've had just in construction has led me to where I am. So I don't know if I would change any of that. I mean, I've had my ups and downs in construction, but I've also built multi-million-dollar log homes in the mountains and built stuff in Riversdale and Saskatoon. Like, it's just, I've been all over, and
You must have lived a good life if you can't think of
invest
yourself to change. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's hard, I guess investing, that was one thing I never did. And I've got, if I could just say those three words, like James, our other friend there, said, like, invest in Apple, Amazon, and I can't remember the third one, but
yeah, if you could whisper to 18-year-old Brad, like, buy some Amazon stock right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Wonderful. Well, Brad, thank you very much for joining us today. Can we quickly get some of your contact details, your phone number, email, website? How can people get a hold of you?
Yeah. So phone number 306-381-9123, broadinspections.com, or broadinspections@gmail.com.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for joining us, Brad. We really appreciate your expertise, and everyone go get a home inspection.
Thanks, Ron. I appreciate it.
Thanks again to Brad for joining us on the podcast this week. Really appreciate his expertise. If you're in the market for a home inspector, consider following up with him. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the like and subscribe button. Until next week, I'm Ron Quaroni, your Saskatchewan mortgage professional.
This has been the Saskatchewan Real Estate Podcast. If you like this episode, find more information and episodes on our Facebook and YouTube pages. If you'd like to be a guest or have a conversation you'd like to learn more about, let us know by messaging the show on Facebook. Thanks for listening.